Hello and welcome to the Animator's Shake-Up, a webcast where animators talk about animation. On this episode, I chat to Amy Lucas, an animator of many mediums, mostly focusing on collage, where we chat about how collage can fuel your creativity. Why not listen along while you work on your own animations and have us for company? So sit back, relax, as we shake it up with some fellow animators on the Animator's Shake-Up. Hello Amy and welcome to the Shake Up Ice Cream Parlour. How are you doing?
Deb, I'm so good. Thank you so much for having me on. This is so cool.
Woohoo! It's great to have you. Yeah.
Same.
I mean, we've got to ask the most important question up front. What milkshake have you gone for?
Aha. Yeah, the drink question. I think we're gonna go milkshake, and I'm feeling kind of like I'm going to say cosmic cactus with a little bit of cucumber.
Dang, because you've got to be careful with those, because I know there's some cactuses that you can have, but you need to cook them, like, perfectly, otherwise they are fatal. Isn't that a thing?
No. I was drawn to their sort of spiky, weird nature. Also, I was a little bit inspired by a drink I had recently, and where they had, like, cactus juice in it, and I was like, what? It was in America. So I was like, these Americans and their cactus juice. So I thought I'd bring it back. So it was
cactus juice. Would you say cucumber with that?
Yeah, just a little bit, just to keep me grounded,
nice.
You know.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm from the country, so I can't be too jazzy. I've got to bring it back.
Right, yeah, with cucumber in your milkshake. Yeah.
A nice soily cucumber.
It's like unwashed.
Yeah, just
back to your roots.
Salt of the earth, you know, bit of dirt.
Yes.
And yeah,
excellent.
I can't explain the cosmic bit. It's
the dirt is just. It is, yeah, it's true. It's a feeling. And it's, the dirt's just like sprinkled on top, like a
garnish.
A garnish. Wow. Yeah, that was the word.
I love that because it'll keep me humble. I think I'm being all cool with my cosmic cactus, and then dose of reality right there.
I love that.
Thanks.
Man.
What are you drinking?
That is a fantastic question. I've had no idea what the parlour has given me today, but it's clearly looked deep into my mind, the deep recesses of my mind. And you know what? No, I'm not feeling it personally. This is actually an old flavour from my past. There was, yeah, I know exactly where this is from. Bit of an anecdote here. Where my mum is, she's a bit of a. I say wheeler dealer, but she's not a wheeler dealer. She's like someone who like finds the best deals, and she will like completely optimize the shopping. She's amazing at finding all these amazing and making these amazing meals and all this stuff with very little. But wow, amazing stuff.
Idiot.
She's always like at the shops when the deals are happening. She's got a little calendar of when Waitrose have got their crazy deals, when Tesco have got theirs, Sainsbury's, M&S, and she will categorically
oh my goodness
and she's amazing at it. But there was one
so
time
impressive.
one time where she saw something which was a steal. It was an absolute steal, and so she had to get it. It was a toothpaste. Now this toothpaste wasn't an everyday toothpaste. It was orange flavored toothpaste.
No. You're kidding.
No, I wish I was. And it was the worst flavor I had ever experienced in my life, because it was because it was mint mixed with orange. It was kind of like the orange had been mixed with like curdle. And so you'd have, I'm one of these, I don't know, everyone does it a bit differently, but I like have breakfast, then I brush my teeth. Whereas I know a lot of people brush their teeth and have breakfast, but I do it that way around. So I'd have like a breakfast, I'd have some cereal, and then I'd be like, now to refresh myself for the day. And then your mouth gets filled with this like curdled orange mint.
No.
It was so
Oh,
bad. It was
oh, mouth.
so
It must have
bad.
been so confusing. Did you see this?
Oh,
Did you see the whole tube through? Or did you
well,
bail? Or were you like,
well,
I've opened it now and mum's bought it and, super
she
saver deal times?
she very much kind of like forced it upon my dad and I to finish it. I'll be
Did
honest,
she
it
do it?
went.
Did she use it as well?
Of course, she didn't.
Oh my God. Devil.
Oh
That's
gosh,
so
but
funny.
it was funny because I do feel like it went down a lot faster than they usually would. So I'm wondering whether my dad occasionally just kind of like squashed the load out into the bin
Hey,
just
it
to see it
happened.
through faster.
That's
Yeah,
so funny. But
it's like
no, the
that typical.
mintiness mixed with
Yes,
the citrus.
yes,
I think I love fruit in the morning, and it won't stop me after I've just brushed my teeth from like eating an orange or eating an apple. It's
right.
a different experience, but
It
I can
certainly
see
is.
past it because it's
That's
worth it.
impressive.
It's worth it.
It is. Oh, okay. See,
I
I feel like it ruins it. That's why I have to have breakfast before I brush my teeth. Otherwise, I'm like, breakfast is ruined. Oh
That's
man.
really funny. And my friends are always on high alert when I'm eating easy peelers specifically because
Right.
they know that I once ate so many that I got ill. Like it made me I was eating like a pack a day for a really long time at uni.
I have such a similar story to this.
Really.
Yes. So, as you've probably heard, I studied physics
Mm,
at university,
yeah.
and I I was someone who never felt like I was a physicist. I felt like I was an imposter among other physicists because truly, through and through, I'm definitely more of a creative kind of person than a physics research kind of person. I only did physics to learn to be able to teach. That
Oh,
was all I wanted to do with it.
that's so.
It's so rare. There's like no one
Mm,
that does that. But yeah. So I was working so hard to try and keep up with everyone else,
mm.
so hard, and it got to the point where I would almost religiously have a minimum of 8 bananas a day just to like give myself as much energy as possible because I was using so much. And the crazy thing is I usually
Mm.
do not like banana.
What?
So I'd force them into myself so that I'd have energy to like power through this
Oh,
godforsaken course.
chasing that potassium to
Yeah.
the end. That's
Surpri-
outrageous.
so I'm surprised I didn't get poisoning like you did. So like
Yeah.
what on earth happened with that?
Oh, it messed my tummy up, and then it made me, yeah, I was really nauseous for ages. I
God.
couldn't figure out why until I went to the doctor, and they were like, "Do you do anything out of the ordinary?" And I was, as a joke, I was like, "Well, do you eat a lot of oranges?" And they went, "How many?" And I was like, "Pack a day." And they were, they literally shut their book and were like, "Right, we know what this is now." But yeah, ever since, whenever I eat fruit, it's just a little bit sourer than it used to be.
Oh.
It's actually changed, like how my mouth tastes fruit. I've
Yes.
cursed myself, but
It's been like attacked
obliterated,
your
just all
taste. Yeah.
feeling, all joy, future citrus joy that I might have.
No. I feel like the only way that you can like combat this is you gradually step up the level of citrus. So like you then go to like eating packs of lemons a day.
That's so gnarly. Yeah. Actually, my parents used to give me slices of lemon when I was younger to like teeth on.
This explains a lot.
Do you think so? So I suppose if we're really thinking about it, it's been on the books for a while. It's part of
Yeah.
major part of the upbringing, the old citrus.
Yeah. Maybe I should see if I can find you that orange toothpaste again.
Oh my God. It's the next natural step. I think my friends will start to worry that I'm back on it and they'll be like, Amy,
Oh
you
gosh.
know that it's wrong. It's bad for you.
Oh, that is that is that is quite horrendous. I mean, kudos to like eating your 5/12 a day,
I
slash
thought
whatever number it was.
simple mind. I was like, fruit equals good. What can
Yeah.
go wrong? But
Yeah.
I can't believe you had the same thing with bananas. I actually feel like that what a connection we have now.
Well, apparently you can have 8 bananas a day and not get very
Ew.
sick. Apparently.
That's where did you get this stat? It's
Well,
amazing.
I don't know. I was just like, I need more energy, and like you could buy packs of 4 quite
Yeah.
conveniently. And it's like, yeah, 2 of those will do.
To be fair, uni students usually go down a completely different route, so I'm really proud
Yes.
of you for choosing bananas.
Oh dear. Yeah, uni was an interesting time, but
Yeah,
that's
wasn't
almost
it?
a story for another day.
Mm,
How that spirals into borderline madness.
right?
But tell me a bit about you. You know, you're an animator.
Sure am.
Tell us about
I'm
that.
an Animator. Yeah, I
Lovely.
am. Yeah. Where did how did it happen? I don't know. But yeah, I'm motion graphics gal.
Sorry,
Um,
just started with those 12 oranges a day.
and from there,
Yeah.
little did I know, I ate the oranges of inspiration.
Yeah.
I don't know how. I think I've always known it was animation. Is that correct to say? When I was young, I used to illustrate some books for my mum, and I think I've always been creative and I've always done stuff like that. When we moved to our village called Newton Valence in Hampshire, big up. It's very small and weird and quintessential, just like bizarre place to grow up, but so much fun because everyone's a character. When we moved in there as a family, I was 6 months old, and we got given 2 African land snails as a housewarming gift,
Nice.
which Mum thought was hilarious, and is a writer, so started writing books about a giant snail as big as
Excellent.
like a house called Old McSlithers. And I started illustrating those books when I was like 11. And then that's always been a thing. And then, yeah, art happened. I hated math, so I couldn't really be doing that. And yeah, I suppose college then happened where I studied art and graphics and business studies in my first
Oh.
year because I was like, I've got to balance it out with something. I can't be too cuckoo. So, bit of business studies I thought would just, stabilize me as a person. Because Russell Howard went to the same college as me, and I know that he did business studies. So in my head, I was like, if Russell Howard can do business studies, I can do business studies. I love The Apprentice. I've watched Dragon's Den. Easy, let's go. Um, failed my first year thanks to business
Oh.
studies, which was fine. I
Hmm.
really mushed up the test because, well, instead of answering one of the questions on the paper, which was so boring I can't even remember for you right now, I wrote a little like short story about how it was written on a post-it note and the sun was coming through the window and I slammed the door, which blew the post-it note off the wall. And I think that failed me the entire paper. But like, thank goodness that it did, because even though I was pretty devastated because like, oh no, what have I done? Start college all over again. I then wound it up on BTech art. It's like 2 years of, figuring out the fun times, figuring out
Hmm.
what you want to do in that realm, which was a realm I was happy in always.
Hmm.
Um, and then one of my teachers realized that I always drew in sequence. I'd never draw one picture. I would always be like three, showing
Hmm.
a movement or stuff like that. And she was like, have you heard of storyboarding and animation? And I was like, you what? Um, you what? So I started looking into that, and then yeah, it just sort of happened. And then in the second year, I'm banging on, but in the second year, um, I decided to specialize in animation, and I was the only one at that time to be doing it. So I was the only
Hmm.
person doing it. None of the teachers, they were really supportive and fantastic and gave me loads of references, but they weren't animation teachers. So
Hmm.
they sort of pointed me in the direction of this big cardboard box, sorry, wooden box with like a strip of wood across the top and a hole in the top of the strip of wood where the camera
Right.
goes. And then it points down. You can like control the lighting a little bit, but not much. And that's when I got into collage, because it was like chopping up pictures, putting them under
Hmm.
in the box, moving them a bit, clicking the thing, moving a little bit more, clicking the thing. And like I got to do that like for each project. And it was just really
Hmm.
fun. It was super experimental. I had no idea what I was doing. but no one did. So that was fine.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's where the collage obsession began. I also
Mm.
loved Terry Gilliam and Monty Python, things like
Mm.
that. But pretty bonkers influences, to be honest.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, because you have quite like a wide range of like styles with your animation, mixed with, all these different kinds of collage. You have some collage that are made of actual video files. You have some which are made of stills and things like that.
Mm.
Like, how much of that, whenever you start one of these projects, is just kind of like almost, because I presume that with collage it almost kind of feels like learning on the go every time, because you're given this stuff from external
Mm.
that you're then like, right, now I've got to make this work. Like,
Yeah.
are there any like particular outstanding stories where you've had to just like almost flip a project on its head, or just completely change up a vision or something like that?
Totally. I think the projects that I'm lucky enough to do in collage are so much fun because they're all really specific to that one project. I can talk about some work I did with Tower Hamlets once for community gardening. Like they had in Bethnal Green, they had this project for community gardening and had a contact there. So they got me on. It's really fun. And they had a big party, which I went to with my camera, got pictures of everyone planting their plants and sharing foods and like textures. I just love like a texture that I can like take and use later on. But
Yeah.
that was great because you end up with that the people that were there on the day wearing what they were wearing on the day, with like the lighting of the day and the location, and then you can just literally pluck the things that you want. And I always start with the person. Love a face, love eyes. And I always give people big heads. I
Love
don't
it.
know why. It just works better with collage somehow.
Yeah.
It's like hyper real. It's a hyper real version of the actual day where that you can curate a little bit, and
Mm.
like it becomes shapes and it becomes like rigging the right things. But I love the personal aspect of it because it becomes
Yes.
like super organic and really true to what it was, which is really
Yeah.
fun. And you can, yeah, take what people were wearing, but not necessarily their shape, and then just make it just becomes really fun. You've got free
Mm.
reign. It's the power, the
Yeah.
power. And
Would you say it was
mm.
was your? Oh, sorry. No, go on. If yeah,
No,
you were gonna say something else. Sorry.
what popped into my head? I was gonna say how none of my friends or the people around me are ever safe, because if I need like an eye or an arm or a
Yeah,
leg, like I will
that'll do.
trawl back through all of our photos that were ever taken, like on a holiday or, you know, and I'll just chop them up. I'll just use them. Like,
Amazing. It's
yeah,
just like Facebook.
it is. Thank God for Facebook. That is my my library.
Oh
It's
man.
great. But yeah,
And so,
digitally.
yeah, is collage like your absolute favorite of all your animation styles? Would you say?
I reckon so. It is my most favorite because yeah,
Mm.
again, it's hyper real. It's fun to rig, and it's like such a reflection of real life. But like the context is in the picture already, so it's
Mm.
like quite fun to play around with layering and looking at things on different surfaces and taking them
Mm.
completely out of where you'd think you'd see something, like throwing things in space, things like that.
Yes. Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
so
Because
abstract. It's so much fun.
yeah, whenever I like find a style which I'm like, yes, I love this.
Mm.
I usually then work out afterwards why I love it. But when I initially try it, I'm usually starting it for a completely different reason. Like what was your, like when you did it first, when you were like studying and you had that big wooden box and you had your camera down there, why was it that you, if you were on, was it like an art illustration course, why did you decide to do collage then?
That's
That's,
so
I'm particularly curious.
Yeah, that's true. I think it was because no one was teaching hand like 2D animation drawing
Right.
there.
Yeah, yeah.
And it just wasn't really a thing. And it was quite like all of the art departments mushed into one messy, like
Mm-hmm.
spilling over into other classrooms, and like lecture set everywhere, and like glue, and just it was really chaotic but really fun because there were
Mm.
so many artsy people doing their thing, and it became like I was so surrounded by mixed media, and like light and dark rooms, and people you'd bump into people doing really exciting things, and you'd be like, oh, what if I like took a picture of it, and then I don't know, used it in some way. So there was just lots of material around me, even though before then I was more sketchy.
Mm.
But I suppose over the years I'm not sketchy anymore. I think
Mm.
because it's all become digital. But at the beginning I loved it because it was like overlays and textures and real hands and real things,
Mm.
which was nice. But it's After Effects now
Mm.
because it has to be because it's so much
Yeah.
quicker.
Yeah, if it should change anything, it's like, oh yeah,
Yeah,
okay,
but there was a
click,
lovely
drag that.
time where it was all just, it's very humbling work when you're like, like squirreling away at 3 a.m. in a
Yeah,
box in a dark room. Like, it's just really grounding and nice. And you
yeah.
feel like you're doing important stuff in your small little way.
Yeah, you've sort of got your space, and there's like nothing else around, which I think is really important when you do get to really focus in on your creative, you know, passion. I suppose it's having that space when you can get it. I think is a real. It's what's the word? It's like a not a treat, but it's like it's one of those moments that is. I can't remember
Like
the
quite
word I'm looking for.
precious.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Very, very
Chuck a word
precious
at you.
thing.
Is it precious? Is it
It,
precious?
I'll take precious. Yeah, I'll take it.
Ding it.
There
How
was
have you found, like when have you found that you work better at different hours now opposed to when you were studying physics at uni? And when
yeah,
did you feel the shift?
yeah. There's definitely. I think there's definitely been a change of time for when I found my creative buzz. Because when I was studying physics, I've got an interesting anecdote to talk to you about. My time stop motioning during when I was at uni. Very similar style to what you were looking at with collage, but with
Nice.
hundreds of pieces of paper instead. Absolute nightmare. But I'll get into that in a bit if we've got time. And but yeah, like the thing for me when I was in uni, I'd work at physics. I'd get up at I'd get to the library for 7:30,
Mm.
and I would just work in there until a lecture. I'd get out. I would then go back into the library, maybe grab some 8 bananas on the way in, have those in the canteen, and then head back into the library.
The warning signs were
Um,
there.
yeah, and then after about 5 p.m., I'd then leave the library, and then I'd either go to the media building and hang out with the media students there, people that I felt like I could more adequately commune with.
Mhm.
And then I'd go home, and then I would stay up usually till about 2, just making stuff. So while I was at uni, I did a mix of mostly direction, but I did a mix of directing films and working on a couple of other projects. I did 80 in total over the 3 years I was there. And so I was, I would just work and work and work. But most of the creative time was in the evenings.
Mm.
But now I'm like, the moment I get up, and I've always been an early riser, the moment I get up, I'm like, right, now's the time to like get all that creative stuff done,
Yeah.
just really lean into it. Because I feel like when I wake up, I'm like, I've got that fresh mind
Mm.
to then just be as creative as I want. And then after that, I'm like, oh.
Right?
And then whatever comes after that.
Yeah, amen to that. I feel the same as you, for sure. It was like the witching hour used to be my hour. I was like,
Yes.
everything is still, but I've got me and I've got my craft and I know what I got to do. I think it was mainly like once you have the vision in your head for something and you're like, I have to execute this because
Yes.
like in your mind, once you know how good or cool something can be, you're like, I will be failing myself if I don't do
Yeah.
this right now, like
That is
right now.
completely it.
Um,
Yeah.
whereas now, because of 9 to 5, it doesn't really work like that. So you've got to
Mm.
like shift into getting there quicker, which is really
Yes.
nice. And then yeah, you are exhausted in the evening times.
Mm.
But then it depends if because I work at an amazing company called Cool Box Films in Brighton. They're so much fun. They are so like enthusiastic, brilliant, and adaptable, and like creative and fun. And so that's all day. And then, but when I've got a freelance gig on, then I will work throughout the evening as well, and then just
Mm.
totally
Yeah.
conk out. But I'm also an early riser, so I'm like up again.
Yep.
And I don't know, I don't really know how. I think living in Brighton gives me a lot of like va va voom because
Yeah.
it's always moving all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. I can totally see that. Yeah.
It's always
There
go,
was
go, go.
I think as well, sometimes it depends on the kind of creative thing I'm doing. So, for example, because I still edit like feature films as well, and when I do that, I usually it takes so long to get into a zone
Mm.
that then you do find that you then once you're there, you're locked in, and you just got to while you're there, you've got to
Get
do
it.
as much as you
Yeah,
can,
before it
So
goes.
exactly, and then you're like, wow, it's 4 a.m.
Right?
What happened? You've done like a full day of work, and then you just started editing at 7 p.m. and then it's 4 a.m. and you're like,
But you're so
wow.
enthusiastic about it. Like,
Well,
it's
yeah,
exciting. Some projects you're like, oh my God, so much fun. But yeah, these days,
yes,
so fast, I try to make it really, if I'm gonna make something, I'm like, get on board with the vision and just like poof it
yeah,
out as quickly as
yeah,
possible. And then just by some miracle, like the intensity does its thing and it's just like
yeah,
done.
yeah. It's amazing, actually. I was sort of blown away by this sort of concept, sort of October, but also recently as well,
Mm.
because I at the moment I've been working on this feature film, my second feature film, which is 60% animated, 40% live action,
Did you show
and so
this at Animation?
yeah,
Oh, I
I've shown a little
remember this.
snippets.
Yes.
It's getting there. It's getting there. Slow and steady, but it's like a 7-year minimum project, so it's ginormous. And it feels. I mean, I love it every time I come back to it, but it just feels like you're not really like getting anywhere with it, even though you are. You
Yeah.
haven't really got anything ever to show for it. So every now and again, I'm just like, right, I'm gonna make something short in the space of 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and then just like boom, there's a thing. But just get really excited about something, just make it, and then be like done. So
Yeah.
I'm in the process of doing that with one thing at the moment. But I think in October I shot 2 short films in one day,
Did you?
which was crazy.
That is
Great fun though.
bonkers. That would have taken
Yeah.
a lot of grit, determination, and bananas.
Surprisingly few bananas. I don't know what happened. I think don't know what happened there, but yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, if you can get yourself really like locked in and really buzzed about something, you can just get so much done. Like
Yeah.
a crazy amount done.
You can. And I feel like you owe it to yourself from the past as well. Because I'm quick now, but I didn't used to be. So it's kind of mad thinking about some of the projects that I've like been able to hoof out so fast, which back in the day would have taken a long time. So
When because you've sort of worked in a variety of like production companies, you've done music videos.
yeah, they're my
like most of the-
favorites.
Oh, okay.
They're my favorites.
So music videos are the favourites. When you sort of do these kind of these pieces that are the sort of collagey thing, do you like to be the one in control of gathering the assets for it, or do you kind of like an external person to come in and sort of surprise you with them, and then you got to try and like make something with it? I'm not sure if you've ever had the latter experience, or whether it's always been you gathering the assets. Like,
I usually gather the assets.
okay,
That's definitely something I usually do. I'll get like, usually the bands I work with are like the music's so much fun, and it's such a like guiding light in terms of you just shut your eyes and you see the finished thing sort of thing. And they usually come to you with a concept. They're like, the song's about this, so we want it to be about this. And And then I've been really lucky. I've had the like creative license. Just they don't really, they don't mind what assets I use. They're just like, do what you want to do. And I'm like, all right,
Wicked.
goes straight onto Facebook and steals the faces of all my friends. But no,
Nice.
definitely using the band's actual faces is really fun, and matching it to the music, because I really believe that music is like 50% of animation, like, or sound is such a good point to start off from. Because without it, like, it already gives you a vibe. And if you're like if you're trying to curate some vision for a song, then music will, put you in the right bubble already, like immediately. And then you just sort of like grab in what gravitates. And it's really fun because, I mean, in a way, any animation is collage, because you're going off of references, you're pulling references from like as far back as you can remember to make this one thing. So yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but it's like collage is so random. Life is so random, but like embrace it and like pull things from it. And because we live in one funky petri dish, it's really chaotic out there. But then if once you've seen many things, then you can use them in your work, which is really fun. That's the fun bit.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, like using the idea of music in itself is part of this mental collage that you pull together. I think that's a really nice way of thinking about it, like not necessarily treating auditable aspects as a different part of it. It's like no, that goes with the mood board, in that thing that I'm using. I think I did I do this every time whenever I do a longer form thing, or even some short things that have got multiple kind of emotions to them, is developing these mood boards that I'm like, when I send it to people I'm working with, I say, when you look at this mood board, to give you the context of what this scene is like, you need to play this music with it.
Yes. Oh, that's the way.
Otherwise it's just like, you can interpret so many different things from a mood board. It's like no. Whereas music really locks you in. It's just like, no, this is it.
It does. I mean, whenever I've got to get loads of work done, I'll always put on I've got a soundtrack playlist. Talking, obviously, Lord of the Rings, Finding Nemo. Wicked. Yeah. But yeah, it's just really atmospheric and can help you hone in on a vision.
Yeah. And yeah, it's important not to underrate it as well. For like anyone who's, thinking of doing their own animated piece, it's so important to like just establish the tone of the piece as a whole, and not being afraid to really not just look at other animations, but go in and really pull apart pieces of music. And you could be listening / watching a completely different film or animation that is supposedly has a completely different tone, but in a different context, that piece of music, you take that out and you apply that to the idea that you've got, and it can sometimes like really fit. So I think it's always worth keeping a note of any particular pieces that just absolutely like resonate something with you. Like, you might not be sure exactly what it is, but making a note of, okay, so a brilliant example that I've got is I'm not sure if you've watched the show Chainsaw Man, or the anime Chainsaw Man.
No, I haven't.
It's I think the soundtrack is the most underrated piece of that show. Personally, I think it's an outstanding anime. I think its emotional depth is far beyond so many animes that I've seen, and the writing and characters are exceptional. But the music, no one talks about it. And I think it is by far the best music for an anime. Like, even I'm talking Ghibli as well. I think the way that they have structured it to match the tones of this really kind of a bit bonkers world, but it doesn't feel bonkers. It feels like incredibly emotive and grounded. It's like this is genius, you know. But
you are
you wouldn't.
selling this. I am checking this out.
You need to. It's extraordinary. But like the amount of pieces because the emotional range that they've got with it, you can just take it out and you can just apply it. Like I'm using it to write a completely different kind of film, but when you found these little tracks, these little gold nuggets of emotion that you can just draw into, it's like, oh, there you go, and then you're in that zone and you can just go. It's
totally.
wicked.
Oh, it just makes my elbows fizz thinking about it. Like it's so inspiring once you find some music, a piece of music that like lifts you or gives you some sort of like you can hear how dynamic it is, and then all of a sudden it matches up with the character's movement, and it's like it's all just one big bubbling cauldron of like awesomeness. And it's so cool.
So don't underrate your music and your how you can use it to make visual things. I think is it's really important. Don't just look for visual references, look for audio references as well. Either to help you just work or come up with a story, you know.
Exactly. Where did you get your inspiration from, Seb Cox?
Crikey. Oh man, there is so many. You know, I have a sort of a secret in how I get a lot of it's I don't know, it's not mean spirited. It's like, I don't know, there's a few ways you can look at it. So I love going to watch student film festivals. Now, there's loads of reasons why I love this. It's because usually these are the first piece of visual medium that someone has been able to express. And what you get is this unfiltered version of a piece of media. Whereas usually, if they've done one or two short films, they then try to be like something else. They try to be like that thing they saw. But with a lot of student short films, there is nothing but an idea, nothing but something they've always wanted to do, and then you watch it and it's just so different and so kind of pure, and it's just like, there's another level of beauty about it, like in its ideas and its style. Like it's not, a lot of the time they're not trying to be something else. This is just a pure expression, and that's why I love going to student film festivals, and I often enjoy them a lot more than just a typical film festival, because all the pieces aren't trying to be like something else. They're just so unique. However, my ideas, I don't steal ideas. I don't watch a student piece and go like, I'll have that.
Harvesting ideas now.
No, that's not what I do. What I do though, is this is where the slightly mean-spirited bit comes in, because along with these wonderfully crafted, unique, or maybe not wonderfully crafted, but unique stories that are incredibly inspiring.
Overcompensating because you're about to be...
No. Uh-huh. You then get some student work which is absolute dog shit. And it is dreadful.
Yes.
But this is the thing. I think I was talking about this on the last episode, was when you watch something that there was one little bit of it where you're like, there's so much potential there, and then they just destroy it by going to something completely different. Like, it's not the idea at all. You watch like the first sentence and you're like, oh, we're going that way, that's really cool, and then it completely doesn't, and you go, wasted. And it's those moments when you get really frustrated with watching something else and then going, now I really want to make that thing I thought this was going to be. And that's a good example of this. Is there was a student film that I saw. I'm so sorry if this is yours, but it was very much like they made this because their lecturer forced them to make something, and they ended up doing, I'm going to say the word documentary loosely here. They made a documentary on light pollution, and me being a physicist, I can tell you that they did not look up a single, in quotation, fact. It was just all incorrect opinion on like what light pollution actually is. And it was just like, what on earth is this? And I was there just thinking, it was just like, just them in the mic, just like, light pollution is really bad. You can't see the stars, and because of that, we aren't actually able to observe what the stars are doing. That was the extent, but it was that for like 5 minutes.
That's so fun. So in a way, they shed no light on the subject.
Hey. Love it. But from that, I'm now in the process of developing. I've got two short films I'm developing at the moment, 2 short animations.
Awesome.
And one of them came from that, again, loosely, documentary on light pollution, where instead I was like, okay, let's take because I haven't thought about light pollution for ages, and I was like, let's take the concept of light pollution and kind of put that into like a Studio Ghibli kind of world, where you've got people who are like, they've got these special towers set up where they have to observe the stars, and they don't have light bulbs, they only have like glowflies that come around with them at night. But maybe there's an invention of light bulbs, and it's like, what could happen then? And so, but it like that frustration of thinking, this is an interesting concept, or this is an interesting idea, and then just completely flipping on its head, completely taking it in different context. So I do not steal ideas, but I do get frustrated by some films and go, I thought it was going to be really cool and do this, and then they didn't. So then I'm like, fine, I'll make it.
But that's like perfect though, because you can take inspiration, and the best do from like something they see that they like wasn't done right, quote unquote, or like if they see a little gap that they want to fill, see a need, fill a need. I've been watching robots.
Excellent.
But like whatever sparks off that spark, again, you'd be remiss if you didn't just go for it.
Yeah,
take things from
especially if it is different. I think it's a completely different story if what it is you're making is just like, I just wanted to do that but with a better budget or something.
Yeah, if you redid the actual thing, that'd be really intense. But why would you, when you can put it to like that Ghibli place? That's such a cool idea. That's a really cool idea.
So it's it's just little things like that. Yeah, that's where a lot of these ideas come from. Or sometimes it will just be a piece of music. I've been part of sorry if I'm going on to, I'd love to ask you some more as well in a minute, but
no, go for
it. Part of this larger feature film that I'm doing, there's like a really long like a 4-minute long sword fight between several characters, where their swords like transform into skateboards and back again. It's pretty sick.
You're
not gonna
so
lie.
Brave. Animating that. You're so brave.
Oh gosh, it's getting there. It's looking good though. But I've never animated sword fights before. So it's like I think Lara in a previous episode mentioned to me that you can. I think I'd seen them before, but she gave me the name of them. They're called MADs. Where on YouTube there's just these compilations of very specific types of animation. So there'd be like swordplay, MADs.
Oh, that's great. MADs.
And I think so, yeah. And yeah, so people just compile, running MADs, jumping MADs. There's just all these things, and they just compile all these amazing versions of that thing. And so I was like watching through this one which is on swordplay for references of like some of the how does someone stand when they're where do their feet go when they swing a sword, like just little things like that. You're like, I don't actually know, and so you just look at these things and like, oh, that looks cool, that's probably more realistic, but that looks cooler, so I'll actually do it like that, and so you can sort of pull different things. But there was one that I was watching where, because it's just clips put to a different piece of music, you don't know the context of each of the clips that you're looking at. And so my mind, because I kept having this video on loop while I was working, and my mind just started making up fake stories of what was going on in this scene that kept coming around. And I was like, maybe they're like really desperate to sort of protect someone else, and so they're doing all they can, letting themselves get beat up while trying to take out as many other people as possible. I was like, oh, that's maybe I could build something around that. So I almost like just by looking at something else, I imagined what the story might have been, and then as a result, make a completely separate entity which is built around this made-up idea that I had just get an inspiration for something completely different. So that's a quite a common one as well. Is taking an out of context piece of media and making up a story for it. With you then, how do you come up with your ideas? When you approached to this music video, did they say, we want kind of this thing to happen, or were you kind of like also the ideas person, like, okay, then we can do this, or what's that like?
Oh yeah, definitely a bit of both. They'll tell me about like the meaning behind the song, and then I'll come up with some ways to show it. There was this one which I loved doing for a band called In Technicolor. Turn It Loose is what it was called, and the song was about like insecurities and anxieties and like their worst fears basically. And I was like, interesting, because I wanted to. Collage is quite fun with that medium because you can surprise people with it. I asked each of them what their like deepest, darkest, most horrible fear was, and I got things back like graveyards and mud and worms as being one, and then or like in a tropical rainforest. Or one guy, Sam, amazing Sam, was scared of like a shoebox full of wasps that he found in his granny's attic. And then the other one was scared of drowning in like deep oceans. And I was like, this is cool, like this is working. And so I created these massive environments based on their fears, gave each one a like set color, and then just like made them run for their lives and like killed them in their own fear worlds. But that was really fun, and I loved that because I tried to make the worlds feel as massive as and scary as possible, which I love doing. There's something about making like a world feel big that I loved, and a lot of it was to do with like compositing basically, and like depth of field and like blurry edges or like out of focus. I wanted it to feel really like claustrophobic as a video because of it being about uncomfortable things. So I was like, everything's going to be too close or too far away or like out of focus. And that one became quite conceptual. I loved it because I was trying to put into practice a lot of the things that I'd just learned. Because when I first joined my first studio, I wasn't that well versed in After Effects really. I'd done bits and bobs, but I was definitely hired to like make short, cool social media videos is what they wanted. They were like, we need someone like pumping out content, showing people what we can do. But that was like such a great space for me to learn like everything I needed to learn for the real projects when I was trusted to be put on them. And I was so lucky to be taught by like the coolest, most like wise, I called him my Gandalf through Middle Earth, Chris. Chris was the best. He taught me everything. And so and making that video is like the culmination of going through that intense process of learning all about 3D, delicious 3D, and rigging characters and all that stuff. And so it was super mega fun. But yeah, the inspiration wise, I'll put an idea to them, and usually the band is so busy and the budget's so small that they're just like, yeah, do it. They're like, go, run.
Wicked.
Yeah, it's super fun.
No, that's another really good way, really, of coming up with ideas is either learning a new medium and you're like, oh my goodness, there's all these different things I can do now, or another cheat method is find a medium that you want to learn and then force yourself to do a project using that medium.
So true. I can feel one bubbling up in the future for me, and it's gonna be, I'm so interested in VR. I'm so interested in it. And I thought I was recently in New York with a friend of mine who is like just crushing it. Her and her team have created a VR like experience called Soul Paint, and it's like based on a type of therapy where you lie down and someone draws around your outline, and then you draw how you're feeling, but it's in a VR world. So it's like you get an avatar and it's 360, and you get a like bunch of different brushes and lots of different colors, and you get asked by what's her name? Who played Ahsoka? Have you seen Ahsoka?
I
It's
have not.
on
Sorry.
Disney Plus. This gorgeous voice just tells you like, where are you feeling? And you're like, ooh, where am I feeling? So like you draw where you're feeling. Anyway, like it's fascinating. It was fascinating being in New York and watching how different everyone's avatars looked. And all of a sudden, like being around that and seeing how like it should be used in therapy or like in for mental health purposes or just communicating how you're feeling from like you to your therapist or you to your mum or like kids using it to communicate how they're feeling inside. It was just like a whole new brand of exploration
Mm,
that I'd never thought about before. And I was like,
yeah.
VR is huge. It's
Mm,
gonna be huge. And I was like, I'm so interested in making like a game in VR now. Not that I've
mm.
done any 3D, so that would be quite fun indeed. How are you
Yeah.
on the 3D side of things?
I actually started in 3D.
Boom
And
shaka.
then when I was, how old was I? I was 11. I was 11 and I started in 3D and After Effects. And then, what was it 3D Studio Max was the one I started with.
That's so
I,
impressive. Did you say you were 11?
yes.
Ah, incredible.
But yeah, definitely, I'm definitely some form of wizard in some regards. To add a hat to my character, but no,
Sure.
started with that, and then only fairly recently then did 2D. From that, I've always done like bits of animation,
Mm.
um, to sort of come all the way back to that horrendous story I was going to tell you about when I was at
Oh
university.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so when I was at college before university, I had been doing all these films since I was 7. I learnt VFX when I was 11, or started learning when I was 11, and then I went to college and I had a double course in creative media, and at first the course was very like I had kind of grown past it already, and I was trying to, because I wanted to get the most out of the course, because I really wanted to do it. So I was trying to tell my teachers, like, I'm experienced in this. Can you push me further? I'm just kept trying to tell them that, and they were like, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And so I kept telling them, look at my YouTube channel, and they're like, no, I've got this to do. Da, da, da. And so the first module in creative media is what it was called, was animation. And I dabbled in quite a bit of animation. I did loads of motion graphics and 3D and things like that. And so the brief was to make a 30-second animation in one of the mediums that we looked into. So that could have been pixelation, some form of stop motion, maybe claymation. Collage was a big one that they did.
But hey,
Hey.
hey, shout out.
and and I was like, no, I've been doing this for so long. I'm going to make a full music video in every animation style and beyond what you've taught us.
Oh my
Because
goodness.
I was fed up. I was like, look at what I can do. And so we had 2 weeks to make this thing. And I made the, which has now been essentially considered as the official music video of Monsters and Men Mountain Sound. So you
That's
might have
so
seen it.
cool.
Who knows?
I haven't, but I'm gonna check it out immediately. Ugh.
So I showed that. I came back in 2 weeks with that, and the next day they came in quoting different YouTube videos of mine.
That's so funny.
And to be honest, from that point on, they did, they actually differentiated the lessons so that it did actually incorporate sort of my skill level, which was like, good. This is, I didn't want to show off. I just wanted them to realize and actually stretch me, because it wouldn't have benefited, and luckily they did, which was really good. And they've been brilliant since then, all those teachers there.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that style, one of which was where we took hundreds of, I took hundreds of little torn up little pieces of paper, and I'd put a projector down. I'd film my friends a reference of them singing the song, and I would crush the colour, so it was either just black or just white. And I would use that as a reference for these tiny little pieces of paper, and I'd move them, move forwards one frame with the projector on the ground. I'd move all the little pieces of paper, get a photo with the camera straight down, move it on another frame, and so on and so forth. Repeat. And it was horrendous. You sneeze and all those pieces of paper are gone. They were tiny, so I was having to use like the back of the rubber of a pencil to move each one. And,
oh no!
It was a lot anyway, but it looked great and it went down really well. So cut forwards 2 years to when I was at my first year at university. And I was at the university's TV station, Uni TV. Shouts out, they're really good. If you're in university and you're not sure if your university has got a TV channel and you're curious about just doing media in between your subjects, I think you should absolutely do them. They're brilliant. Anyway, so I was on this one, and the head of Uni TV at the time said, "Oh, Seb, you make stuff outside of this. Could you make us an award-winning one so that we look really good?" And I was thinking, oh, okay, I've got all these assignments coming up soon. This was sort of like, I don't know, like Aprilish, May time, and I was thinking, okay, award-winning, like what went down really well before? And so I went back and thought about this animation with all these hundreds of little pieces of paper, and so we created this short film called Tearaway, which was about this runner who was coming to grips with their way of learning versus a teacher's way of trying to pressure them to learn. They got like a new teacher, and we sort of represented it, and the clash of their way of thinking with these. Everything would go into this paper animation style. And so to get to the crux of the story is I said, right, everybody. So I had a team this time. I actually had a team. I said, okay, so we are going to do this thing that I did before, where we've got hundreds of pieces of paper. We've already got the references. We're in this studio. And we've got it all set up, and we're just going to work through the night because we're not official university media students. We are of different subjects, so we just got to have it overnight. And it's going to take all night, but we're here just to power through. And prior to this, so this was my third day and night without sleep, because I had 3 assignments due, and I had a crazy short amount of time to. When this had to be submitted to a competition. And so this was we were going to do my 4th night of no sleep, and we were powering through. We started at 4:30. We had about 9 people there. We were getting it done. It was let's go, let's go,
all in it together.
That's it. And then it came to 9 p.m. and we had 6 of them go, "Oh, I'm a bit tired actually," and they just left.
Prioritizing their health. Ugh.
How dare they?
How could they?
But then we were left with 3.
Yes.
And they're brilliant. They carried on. Got to midnight, and they were like, "Yeah, so we're gonna have to call it there." There was one guy who, for some reason, he was going on a date at midnight.
Is he a vampire?
I wouldn't be surprised. Lovely guy, but possibly. But yeah, so he went off. He said, "I'll be back after my date."
That's
I'm like,
so funny. Rock and roll lifestyle animation, can I just say?
Yeah, absolutely. And so it was just me left. Now, you're not really supposed to be alone in the studios. You're supposed to have at least one other person there. So don't share this with anyone, everybody. Yeah. But anyway, so it was just me, and I was just powering through from midnight, and then it went past 3, and then it went past 5, then past 6, and I finished at 10 in the morning. And the to sort of explain what happened to the other guy, he was trying to get back in, but there's no signal in the studio, and we completely forgot. So it was, he did try. He was a good guy. But it was just me. And the crazy thing was, this is where it gets particularly interesting. So I finish at 10. We've got the studio until 11. I'm like, right, I've got these pieces of paper everywhere. And so I push myself up from the floor, and my eyes just go tunnel vision. and I almost pass out. It was just like,
my God.
because I haven't slept for four days and nights at that point, and I've been working through my assignments. I've been trying to get this film done, and I just suddenly stood up, and I almost went. And so
my
back
God,
in
you're feeling woo.
it was so extreme, and so at that time when Skype was more of a thing, I quickly like booted up Skype and I got a friend on there. I said, okay, I'm packing this up, but if I go quiet, you need to send someone over because I am barely here right now.
Whoa.
And so they were really good. They sort of stayed online while I packed it all up and got it all together. And then it was all my equipment as well because of all the various films I'd done in the past. So I was having to walk all that back to my accommodation. And there was this funny thing where, there was this like sort of wide path at the university that you walk down. And I thought I just essentially like blacked out while I was walking. And then I suddenly realised that I was stood further down the path, but stood 90 degrees from the direction that I was walking originally. And I just sort of like recalled what had just happened. And I'd kind of like snaked my way along this path without knowing. It was just like, oh my God.
Goodness.
And so I then got home with all this equipment and I slept for 14 hours. And I've never slept for that long before at all, anywhere close. But man, there's my crazy longest non-sleep anecdote finally shared on this podcast.
Isn't that's wild. That's such your poor brain.
I've never been the same again.
Yeah. And it's so unfortunate because the longer a stint you pull, that especially on a stop motion project where you have to be like really on it, because every frame you take you can't take again, so it's like you've got multiple like hundreds of frames that have to be perfect, but you're so tired because it's like, why is that with stop motion? That's such a thing. I had a recently was so lucky, got to work on this really cool plasticine like globe stop motion animation for a camera company called MPB with at Coolbox, and oh my gosh, me and production assistant Jade were working every hour, every minute over the weekends, evenings, just to get it done because it was so wholesome. But it was really fun. We had like this polystyrene round ball that we covered in plasticine, which we made into the earth, and then we made lots of little cameras using cardboard and hot glue and like the will to go on, and just lots and lots of props and stuff. And then the company wanted the cameras to animate on in different ways. So we had plonkers, ploppers, and poppers. That's what we called them. It sounds insane. And like we were just working so long that we weren't making any sense, but we were managing to communicate with each other because each technique was different. We had some that like grew on, others like popped with a like foil star. And what if anyone had heard our conversations, they would have thought that we were insane. But actually, and I find this with animators, like you talk to any animator, they're all so weird because we're like, it sounds really really silly, like we're not making any sense, but actually we're being really specific about emotion or a feeling. Do you know what I mean? Like we managed to hone in, and that's why the people find us so bizarre, because they think this is really weird, but actually it's just a very finely curated vocabulary that reflects emotion.
That is it. Yeah.
And that's something I enjoy with fellow animators.
Just the unique nicheness of
this
communal madness.
Yeah, it is. It actually is, because we get so like tied up in like, you could spend so long animating a bee's eyelash, and it's like once you've been doing that, like how will you be sane? How
do you return to society?
I don't think you ever do, Seb. I don't think you ever do.
Change people.
Your first animation changes you.
That's it. Oh gosh. And I mean, you've also been like you've been a juror, right, on the British Animation Awards. Is that right?
Yeah.
Like
that
2024
was a few months ago, but I was super lucky for that to happen. Yeah, that was awesome. in the best
What's
design category.
Oh,
It was
nice.
really cool. I was in there with there's an amazing animation company which you need to check out called Dog and Rabbit, who I've like followed for years. They're really cool. They're in London. They do like 2D, 3D collage mashups. Mwah! Chef's kiss. So cool. Dave Anderson joined me as a juror as well, and Darren Robbie, who's a really awesome guy. He's like done advertising with Aardman for years, and then directed the Moomins like first series, a couple of series or whatever. And they were like really cool to have either side as we,
Mm.
and it was just a really cool experience. It was great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's it like to to be a juror? I feel like it's such a different process, obviously, than creating your own. Like, but like,
Yeah.
what is that? Because that's something that probably most people aren't gonna be aware of. Like what that whole system or process is like. Like, what was it?
Well, I'd never done it before, and it was a category that was really like subjective and personal, like design. And what struck me as interesting, well, like, I had to make, for my own sanity, had to like cordon it off. I think we had about 17 projects to like choose finalists from, and I had to make a graph of like environment, feel, uh sound was one, like the sound design, did it work with the design that I was seeing, type thing.
Mm.
But I was really just trusting my gut, and it was really fun to chat it through with the others because we all seemed to agree on most things, which was really fun. But it's quite an interesting process because there are so many. We had long form things in there, like films, like things like that, and then we had shorter things, adverts, title sequences. So it was like the projects were also different, and the budgets were also different for each project as well. And like it's quite difficult not pitting, but like trying to figure out the right way to go with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a
Yeah.
really fun experience in the end.
Yeah.
And
That's
it's great
fascinating,
to
though.
be
Yeah.
exposed to all the new, like, an exciting design stuff that's going on,
Mm. Yeah.
which
I
we
bet
love.
just like consuming it in itself is just like, this is
Yeah,
awesome.
right? I mean, I'm like, it's just weird, but I never watch animated things. Like, I don't watch animated TV. I don't like animated, like, films necessarily 2D. I can't deal with it because I can't unsee the process. Do you know
Mm.
what I mean? Like, I find
Hmm.
it quite stressful to watch
Yeah.
something that is like so incredible, like Into the Spider-Verse. Like, so many people were like, Amy, you have to watch it, you have to watch it. And I was like, it's gonna make me feel like a terrible animator and that I'm not doing enough.
Oh, no.
Because it's so good. And yeah, I was watching it
Mm.
just in pain because like the talent was hard to fit in my cheeks. It was just difficult. But
Yeah.
wow, it's like it baffled for sure.
Yeah.
Have you
I
seen it?
think I have. Yeah. It
Mm.
is very good. But I don't know. I mean, like, I think I'm very good at appreciating it for what it is, because it's become the staple of what young animators want to make nowadays.
Yeah.
That's like it. But it's I don't know. I think I'm not sure what happened, but at some point I kind of accepted that there are different, not levels, but approaches to animation. You know, like the ways that I do animation, it's my way of doing animation. And you know, when things like that come along, it's like, okay, cool.
That's there. Mm,
But that's exactly that's their way.
totally.
And so I don't really get, I wouldn't say like intimidated by it. I think I'm just like, you know, okay, that's cool. You know, I've already got my, I mean, maybe it's because I've already got my sources of inspiration that I'm
Totally.
like locked in on, you know. So, you know, it's like, you know, it didn't push anything else away. It
Mm,
just exists. So yeah, I can't really explain it
yeah.
other than the fact that it didn't faze me. Apart from being like nice.
I was
Uh,
like, oh my God, because it was like blowing my mind so much
mm,
throughout. I was like, hurt, but like because it was so good type thing.
Mm,
Because it like pulled, they had gorgeous collage moments and all of the
mm,
movement and all of the like inspiration they'd taken in the design. Like they didn't do anything wrong, and I was like, how can something
mm.
so perfect be so true in our lives? I just thought that
Yeah.
was wild. But yeah, just thinking sometimes about like the teams, the size of the teams, the overtime, the unpaid overtime. I'm just like, oh, I see
Yeah.
all of it. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
wow. It's just huge. It's just
Yeah.
huge.
I think the most miraculous part of it is the fact they were able to create something so stylistically
Mm.
and not get told not to.
Yes.
I think that is the most impressive thing about it. You know, you uncap many animators and they will produce gold. They will produce absolute gold. But it really does come down to the limitations that are set out in the full brief of a project. Usually that is what can squish it into something which is less Spider-Verse, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
You know, obviously sometimes you do get wonderful clients who just say go, and that's wicked when you can get them.
Mm.
But, you know, when you look at these massive scale studio projects, there are so many investment parts, different equity people who wanting to establish certain things. Like, there's too many fingers most of the time. So, yeah, I'm amazed that it exists in the capacity it does
Bonkers.
due to that side of stuff,
Yeah,
to be
that's
honest.
so true. I know you know.
Yeah.
I know you know, man. When you work
Yeah.
with like bigger, when things get bigger, it gets a lot more stringent and a lot less fun
Yeah.
sometimes. You
Yeah.
know, as you said, limitations, but and you know, yeah, just can be a bit sticky, which is why as soon as I like have a project like that where I'm like, oh, I feel like I've got a little soggy, damp sadness with that,
Mm,
then
mm,
I go out and find a cool song with a band that I know and
yeah.
like, and I'm like, what you got for me? Bring me back
Yes.
down. But that's why I love
Yeah.
working with like people and bands and people that genuinely appreciate and like get something out of it, or like it's a collaboration, right? I think
Mm,
I miss having a team. Even at work, I'm like the only motion graphics animator, and even at the beginning in college, I was the only one doing it, and I feel like I've always lone wolfed it, and I've never quite been in a studio with more than like 10 people all working on the same objective. And I'm like, what would that be like? I don't know.
mm,
But there you go. It's a way of
yeah.
life. It's nice because I like, love a cheeky bit of control, and especially if you're the one carrying got the vision, no one's
Mm,
gonna stop you from doing that. Sometimes I'm like,
mm,
oh, a team would be nice.
mm.
Bit of perspective, fresh perspective.
And with that concept of perspective,
Mm.
sort of leading us into our sort of roundup questions here,
Mm.
what advice would you give a younger you now that you've experienced what you have? Is there anything which you want to almost proffer yourself with?
That's such a question. I would say, like, don't be scared to try things you have no idea that you have no idea about. I'd say, even
Mm,
if you do like, I don't know, just dabble in every pie. Like, try a bit of this, try a bit of that. Probably learn After Effects quicker, but like, yeah, I'm not sure. I think I would say find people that are doing exciting work as well as you that you admire and that you can work with later. I think
mm,
that's really good advice. Or like
yes.
get a community around you earlier on so that you like admire, can rely on, can learn from, and like lean on sometimes, and you could do the same for them.
Mm,
Because it's like it is important to have a community around you. I think and get that for a while. I think going to where I met you at Brighton Animators Club, that was really nice. That's a lovely place to go,
mm,
and talk about animation and stuff. And I suppose the last time I had that was at uni studying animation there. But then there was a big dry patch in between where I was kind of like going at it by myself, looking for work, doing the work, all very isolated, and making contacts, but not necessarily in animation. So I'd say, get out there, little Amy, and go find the people.
Yeah, that's really good. I think that is something which I think a lot of people I've spoken to, it seems really intimidating, but it's like, when you think about other animators, like they're going to be quite similar to yourself, so it's like you may as well.
Yeah, might as well, for sure.
Yeah.
And it's fun who you end up meeting along the way, and you never know what that will lead to. Like I'm pretty sure the person who got me involved in the jurors gig I met at a screening in London for like a meetup thing that Dog and Rabbit put on. Pretty sure it was there where the seeds were sown, and then we connected on LinkedIn. I sent them my work. I was like, do this, open to new things, blah blah blah. And yeah, they liked my work and they liked my design, and then all of a sudden the email comes through and I think, what? Is this a joke? Big imposter syndrome city times, but like if I hadn't gone to that night and like met that person and done the thing, then wouldn't have done the cool thing this year. So
yeah, that's it. It's go to stuff, actually talk to people.
Talk to people.
And follow up on them as well.
Yeah, it can feel
keep
really uncool. Like it's not a natural thing to do. I've certainly struggled straight out of uni because you do feel like you're selling your soul. You're like, oh, this is me. Hi, this is what I do. But eventually over time, it's like you realize that if someone is looking for an animator like you, then thank gosh you did speak up and say hi. And yeah, no shame. I think I've outgrown shame. There's no shame anymore. Do the connecting and like,
love it.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, love it. And do you have any projects lined up or things that you're like wanting to do next?
Yeah, in the future, work's very fun. That's keeping me on my motion graphics toes. And personally, like right now, I'm sort of open to future projects. I don't quite know what's going down. I'm in like a moment where I'm just putting myself in different places, waiting to be inspired, things like that, reading books, just sort of waiting for the next thing. I've got some cool stuff happening with a painter, my friend Morag, who won Portrait Artist of the Year like a year, 2 years ago, I don't know. But I'm working with Morag and Sasha, who are friends of mine. And Sasha's like an incredible writer. She's really twisted, dark, like copyright stuff. She's written an amazing poem that Morag's gonna illustrate and paint, and I'm gonna take Morag's art and make it move. And it's like a completely different a way to approach painting. If you're animating someone else's painting, especially, it's like quite a delicate process, opposed to like me whacking out, a sequence. It's like they spend 5 hours on each frame. Like think about it like that, and then you're like, oh my gosh, okay, I have to be really gentle, and it's got to emanate the vibe of the art type thing. But yeah, she's a really cool portrait artist. It's really like spacious, and like it's just begging for a little bit of boil, just a little bit, but not too much, because you don't want to like scribble all over what's already there. So it's a completely different way of treating visuals. But the poem that Sasha's written is like really dark and twisted and cool, and I think that Morag's style is very like light and like spacious, so that's going to be really interesting to like I feel like I'll just be a conduit between the two. I'll just be bringing the words and the visuals together. But yeah, we're pretty ongoing with that, so
Wicked.
We're just letting it build.
Yeah, that sounds really cool.
Fun.
It's really nice when you've got like some little pockets of different areas of talent that you then just come together, and you're like everyone has got not little or less experience than someone else, and it's just that you just all these 3 or more heads just come together and just
Yeah,
create something of.
I admire it so much. Like I'm so lucky to have some really cool creative people around me that's just like fill my little creative cup, and I'm never bored, and they're always working on their own stuff, and I'm like, I love the momentum. I love it. How can I help? What do you need? How can we like take this places? It's really proactive and really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. And so if people did want to find you to work with you,
Hey.
where can they find you?
Oh, well. The streets of Brighton. I'm on Instagram. My art Instagram is at Amy Lucas Arty. Pretty sure, Amy Lucas Arty. Or I've got a website. If you just type in Amy Lucas animation, you'll get something. You get my very old website that I do keep updated. But yeah,
fabulous.
Do it. Make it the contact.
Wonderful.
Give me the things.
I hope you enjoyed your cactus and cucumber, bit of dirt, bit of what was the special?
There was there was a bit of dirt and cucumber, cactus, cosmic. It was a cosmic cactus with a bit of. Now, thank you for saying that. I actually, now you mention it, it was delicious. It's going down very well. Thank you.
I still did not like the orange flavoured toothpaste style milkshake. That was not for me. But for some reason, the Shake Up Parlour just went into the root of my memories and pulled that one back. But sometimes it doesn't get it right, and that's okay.
It's a brilliant revelation. I'm pleased that it popped up from the crevices of the mind.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure, absolute joy having you on here, Amy. And who knows, maybe we'll get you back in a future episode.
Yeah, never say never. That would be beautiful. You're a fantastic host, Seb. Thank you very much for having me on.